All right, straight up pictures we're getting to you from outside Parliament. That is India's Finance Minister Arun Jaitley. Remember, the third union budget for Mr. Jaitley is scheduled to be tabled today. However, there has been a question mark that has been placed on whether that presentation is going to go ahead as scheduled following the death of the former Union Minister E. Ahmed. He passed away at a hospital in New Delhi earlier this morning and late into last evening actually. And so questions are being raised whether the presentation will go ahead as scheduled or not. Once again, visuals from outside India's Parliament of the Finance Minister Arun Jaitley. He is joined by a number of other familiar faces. Remember, today is the day of the presentation of India's union budget, 1 month before usual. That is one of the highlights of this budget, and of course the fact that the railway budget is not going to be presented separately but as part of the larger budget. Big news doing the rounds in India today is the death of Mr. Ahmed. He died of a cardiac arrest at a hospital in New Delhi. Remember, Mr. Ahmed did collapse during President Pranab Mukherjee's address to both houses of parliament yesterday. He was then immediately rushed to intensive care at that hospital. A ruckus did take place in the late evening when Mr. Ahmed's family alleged that they were not being allowed to meet with the patient. This was followed by Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi arriving there to sort of take charge of the situation. Mr. Ahmed did pass away late last evening. His body was released to his family at about 2:15 in the morning on Wednesday. Now, parliamentary proceedings are usually adjourned when a sitting member passes away. However, keeping in mind the significance of today and the tabling of the union budget, questions have been raised on whether that will take place or not. WION's chief domestic correspondent Kartikeya Sharma is joining me on the phone line right now to talk more on that story. Kartikeya, what are you picking up? Are there any indications on whether the budget is going to be postponed or not?
You see, good morning to you, Aisha. You see, the bottom line here is that whether the budget takes place or not, it's a matter of convention. The Speaker has to take a call. It's an all-party thing. But the preparations for the budgets are on. Finance Minister, Mr. Jaitley, has reached his office. And I would say there are a plethora of opportunities which would be available for the government. There are a number of issues. As we had spoken to a couple of law officers earlier, you know, you can present the budget, then adjourn the House, or you can have an obituary references for some time and then, you know, go in for budget and then adjourn the House. There are a number of, I would say, opportunities and venues available for the government. So we will have to wait till the Speaker takes a call on it. But as of now, I'm joined by Sudesh Sharma, principal spokesperson of Bharatiya Janata Party, Mohammad Suleiman, spokesperson of the Congress, and Sumit, my colleague. And all eyes are set on the budget because the preparations are on. As of now, no other call has been taken, Aisha. So my first question to you, Sumit, is how do we set up this debate? What sort of a budget are we looking for?
Kartikeya, currently the biggest challenge economy is facing is due to demonetization. Now, government has to put more and more money into hands of people. How do they do it is the biggest challenge. Will they increase the slabs? Will they cut down the taxes on consumer durables? that is up to them. One biggest problem is that if they increase more spending, if they bring down taxes, that is going to create a problem for exchequer. So how do they have to balance the both spending as well as fiscal deficit target? Well, remember, the fiscal deficit target has been kept at 3% for 17 and 18. So so we have just heard from many bankers and all that, that spending has to increase.
I think you made a relevant point, demonetization. Sudesh, if you look at today's newspapers, you'll find that economic survey, demonetization and shaving of the growth rate has been the dominant theme cutting across newspapers, even the pink newspapers. So in that context and today's budget, what are your expectations? And isn't it now a sort of a fact that demonetization has impacted the growth as it has been reported in the survey, sir?
Uh, we were not in any doubt that yes, there would be temporary problem in the economy, and we have seen that, as the statistics also say, that there is 0.5%, slashing off of the growth. It was projected, but now it is coming down to 7.1% instead of 7.5%, which was earlier. But we said that in the long run, the economy has to gain, because with GST rolling down, and when you see the impact of demonetization and more people getting into the non-cash economy, coming into the banking system, you'll have more, government will have more money for social sector spending. And you know that when the whole world is suffering from sluggishness, economic sluggishness, even the US is struggling, where India has been able to save itself. Still, the growth is much more than what it used to be during the UPA regime, and it is going to go up. We have a projection of 6.75 to.
So you are pretty hopeful, Mohammed. BJP is pretty hopeful that the budget is going to be a good one, and the effects of demonetization will be taken care of. We don't know as of now, because we don't really want to speculate on this matter. It's a sensitive issue as to how the budget and when the budget will take place. We'll assume that till the speaker has not taken the call, the budget is online. We have taken that line because it ultimately rests on the decision of the House. But if the budget takes place, what sort of budget are you looking for? Because a lot of reportage has taken place on demonetization and its effect on shaving off the growth curve.
Look, Karthike, right now the government is in it's in a trap. The economy is in doldrums. Demonetization has hit the economic state of the country badly. Neither in the president's address nor in the economic survey for past 3 years, any data has been revealed that how many jobs have been created. Mr. Modi has promised for 2 crore jobs every year. So by this statistics, 6 crore jobs should have been created by the government. But in the last year, only 1.5 lakh jobs have been created, which is a 7-8 year low in India. Secondly, demonetization has adversely impacted the economic state. The reason being, there is a 1% downward spiral for the GDP growth rate. The CMIE has also projected a bleak 6%. And now again the government has projected for the next year of some 7 to 7.5% growth rate. I don't know how will they fulfill. The fiscal deficit about which Sumit was addressing, it's some rupees 300 to 350 billion. And with the all-time, in the recent past, with the all-time low in the crude oil prices, the government has a lot of space, because Mr. Jaitley's way of, collecting revenue by taking money from the common man's product. Right now, with the rise in crude oil prices, government has very little room to reach the target of covering.
You are saying that you have critiqued the budget, but you have not told me what you are looking forward to it. Sudesh, I'll come back to you. Sumit, I'll also come back to you. We'll go across to our colleague Jaitley. Jaitley has got some guests with us. Good morning to you, Jaitley.
Good morning, Karthike. Thank you so much for those updates coming in there from Vijay Chowk. Keep them coming in, really. Here we are at the Union Budget Special, and joining us in the studio live is Shailendra Bhatnagar, who is the business editor of The Statesman, and very soon we will be joined by Jaijeet Bhattacharya, who is an economist and a partner at KPMG as well. Good morning, Mr. Bhatnagar. Thank you so much for joining us on our first Budget Special on WION World is One News.
Thank you, Chetty. It's my pleasure.
So let's start off with what your expectations really are from the union budget this year. Should it go the consumption way and cut the consumer and give a thrust to the consumer discretionary spend, or should it tackle the income disparity in India? Paint the lay of the land for what your overall expectation from the budget would be today.
See, I would imagine Mr. Jaitley would try and please all sorts of people across the board, and he'll have something or the other for all constituents, whether they are people below the poverty line, whether it's middle income people like us, whether it's the salaried class or the higher income group. Everybody will get a small chunk of his largesse. And similarly, all sectors will see some goodies being given to them and some goodies being taken away. So that's the broad brush that's been happening over the last 20-25 years, and this year will be no different.
You know, we've been talking so much about fiscal consolidation, and the BJP government needs to focus on fiscal consolidation, show fair level of fiscal prudence as well. What is your take as to what the finance minister will do today on that front?
See, over the last 3 years, ever since Mr. Jaitley took charge, we've seen a fiscally consolidatory budget that has come in, simply because in 2013 the fiscal deficit was 5% of GDP, and over time it's been brought down to sub 4. In fact, it's about 3.5% for FY17. So what Mr. Jaitley is likely to do is to keep that deficit somewhere between 3.2 to 3.4% of FY18 GDP. Now bear in mind the fact that there are about 7 states that go for polls in 2017. So Mr. Jaitley has very little wiggle room in which he can actually manage that number. That said, he also has to kickstart economic growth, because private capital expenditure is just not happening. So it's left for the government to kickstart the economy by spending on rail networks, on roads, on housing, on agriculture. So ballpark, the number should be somewhere between 3.2 to 3.3% of fiscal of FY18 GDP, but it could go as high as 3.5%. And it won't be a bad number at all. That is not what the market is worried about.
Right. Mr. Bhatnagar, thanks for setting the ball rolling on this conversation. But I just want to quickly cut across to Mr. Subhash Kashyap. He is speaking on what might happen as far as that budget tabling goes.
इस मामले में निर्णय स्पीकर महोदया का होता है और स्पीकर महोदया ही अध्यक्ष महोदया निर्णय लेंगी, और स्वाभाविक है कि वो निर्णय लेने से पहले लीडर ऑफ द हाउस, प्रधानमंत्री और लीडर्स ऑफ पार्टीज को कंसल्ट करती हैं, क्योंकि इस मामले में आज जिनकी मृत्यु हुई है उनका फ्यूनरल दिल्ली में नहीं होना है और कल संभवतः कल केरल में होना है। तो अगर कुछ मेंबर जाना चाहते हैं फ्यूनरल में पार्टिसिपेट करने के लिए, तो ये हो सकता है कि कल के लिए सदन को एडजॉर्न कर दिया जाए पूरे दिन के लिए, तो पेइंग ऑफ रेस्पेक्ट टू द ऑनरेबल मेंबर भी हो जाएगा और मेंबरों के जाने के लिए भी सुविधा हो जाएगी। आज बजट को समय से प्रेजेंट किया जाए, पहले ऑबिचुरी रेफरेंसेस, मिनट ऑफ साइलेंस, उसके बाद बजट प्रेजेंटेशन और उसके बाद एडजॉर्न। This is not a matter governed by the Constitution or by rules of procedure or by law. It is a matter of convention. The convention has been that if a sitting member dies during the session of the House and his funeral is to take place in Delhi, then the House is adjourned for the day in order to enable members to attend the funeral. In the present case, the funeral is to take place presumably tomorrow and outside Delhi in Kerala, in his hometown. To enable members to attend the funeral, it may be desirable to adjourn the House for tomorrow. And today, when the House meets, obituary references may be made, silence observed, and then the budget presented as fixed, because the budget cannot be postponed. Budget may be presented and thereafter the House stands adjourned.
All right, that was Mr. Subhash Kashyap talking to us about the fact that the budget will be likely presented today in the Parliament, and there would be a minute of silence perhaps that would be observed in the demise of the sitting member of Parliament who passed away. But this is something that we were discussing, Shailendra, that the budget, no matter what happened, the show must go on, and
Absolutely.
It will happen today. That's the point of view that you gave us as well earlier.
See, basically, it's something of huge national importance, and while the death of a member of parliament is sad, the procedure in this case is simply that you have a minute's silence, adjourn the parliament for a while, and then reconvene for the budget to be presented. I would find it extremely difficult to imagine that something of this kind of importance.
So I feel the compartment should be a bit cleaner.
There is
and
there is
actually people are habituated to whatever Indian Railways are giving. So
but the show must
I think cleanliness would be a main issue.
We also have Suyash Bhatt, who is an economist who's patched on with us. Good morning, Suyash. Thank you so much for joining us right here on the Union Budget Special. In fact, before you joined us, we were having a chat with Shailendra Bhatnagar, who is the business editor of The Statesman, in the studio, and we spoke to him about painting the lay of the land of the union budget, which is supposed to come out today, and what his expectations at the macro level are as far as the GDP numbers are concerned, the growth numbers are concerned, and the fiscal deficit numbers are concerned. So Yash, why don't you open the show by telling us your view, and then we will get into the nuances further.
Morning, Jaitley, and it's really interesting to see the way different people are talking about what are the expectations from the budget. If you look at the current situation, even in the yesterday's economic survey, it was mentioned that the GDP is going to take a big hit. So, and the government, the banking system is flushed with cash right now. So I expect that keeping demonetization and slowdown in economy, Trump effect, everything in mind, I believe the government should be concentrating more on boosting spending, because that's the only way you can come out of this slowdown that is there. And if you see over a period of time globally, India is the only place where you have a system of exemption which is being brought in, which targets spending. So say for example, if I say cut the direct taxes and let people have more money with them, there is a chance that they may end up spending on something which is useless. So rather than that, have a targeted spending on maybe increasing exemptions on maybe home loan, increasing exemptions on maybe saving or investment in infrastructure bond, so that you end up making people spend in the places where the government actually wants them, rather than just having a cut in direct tax and all that, which is good in a way, but it may not necessarily result in something which the government actually wants. It may also be counterproductive, where you may have inflation also which may come up. By you going through the exemption route, I believe the government may have a very targeted way of incurring expenditure from common man. And otherwise, I think there is a lot of talk about service tax being raised from current 15% to 18% to keep GST in mind, and we have a lot of other initiatives like direct taxes on luxury, which again is expected to increase on maybe SUVs and high-end cars to be increased. Excise on tobacco, again, as I said, once GST comes in place, tobacco cigarette industry has almost 65% taxation on products, so even that is likely to increase. So these are some very standard things which the government does every year, and I believe it would be in line with that. And as most of them are saying, it should be a populist kind of a budget, because keeping in mind demonetization, Trump effect, and all that.
Absolutely, Suyash. And as you're pointing out, this isn't just a matter of business, but there are political implications always when there is a budget involved. I'm going to bring in WION's chief domestic correspondent, Kartikeya Sharma, on that note. He's standing by in New Delhi for more of the political angle to this, the budget presentation. Now, Kartikeya, obviously there's a question mark that has been put, and we're hearing that Sumitra Mahajan is probably going to make an announcement around 10 a.m. on whether proceedings are going to go ahead as planned. But when it comes to the question of demonetization, how big of a shadow is that going to present on Mr. Jaitley's budget presentation and really parliamentary proceedings thereafter?
Absolutely. I've got both the spokesperson of the Bharatiya Janata Party and Congress, and they are willing to take this question as to what should be the decision or what may be the decision of the Speaker. So there is to you. Now, since Arun Jaitley has gone to the President House, he must be briefing the President. Speaker is likely to take a decision at 10. My colleague Aisha has just informed me. Should the government go ahead with the budget? In your opinion, what does the norm convention law say? Budget happens or doesn't happen, or there should be an obituary reference and then the budget, or plain adjournment? What do you foresee?
You see, there is no precedence of such an incident happening. But yes, the normal course is if a sitting member dies in such a situation, then normally the House gets adjourned for the day. But since there's a new situation and budget day has been fixed already, so maybe the government may take a stand and the Speaker may agree that you present the budget and then adjourn the House. That would serve the purpose as well. And
so you feel that the budget, this is the big day. Pay your respect, but the budget should go on.
Yes, yes.
Mohammed, what is the view of your party? Because yesterday Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi went to the RML. There was a huge ruckus there, and the body was released at 2:45 because the daughter had alleged that without telling them, the body was put on a life support system. So what's the official position of the Congress? Because for the first time, in a very unprecedented way, you have a lot of political overtones on our budget, which would have been just about economy.
Yeah, you are right, Kartikeya. Yesterday, Rahulji and Sonia ji went to RML. The reason was there was some problem in relation to the treatment which has been given, in relation to the life support or other things. As on the stand of the presentation of budget in a situation like this, when a very senior member and a former minister of the House has expired just a day before the budget has to be presented. In a normal course, if a member dies, the House is adjourned the next day after the formal obituaries and others. Yeah, that's the convention. But today is the budget, and it's a very important and one of the most important event of the Parliament, and it should be presented as on day. But I think it can be adjourned for some time, and otherwise also.
What do you mean adjourned for some time? What do you mean by that?
Otherwise also, what I am telling. Otherwise also, the Congress Party has demanded that this budget should have been postponed to March after the election results are over. I am not saying just because of the passing away of E. Ahmed, it should be adjourned. We have otherwise demanded also. As on today, there is nothing I can say on the adjournment, but the presentation has to be seen by the government and the leader of opposition.
So basically, both of you agree that this is a matter which is in the domain of the Speaker, and I think, Aisha, this is also a matter which will create future precedents and convention. Back to you, Aisha.
Right, Kartikeya, like you're pointing out, and as your guests are pointing out, big question marks. Is the budget going to go ahead or not? We're going to have to wait and watch on that. We're going to take a really quick break here on WION. We'll be back in just a bit to keep the conversation going on that all-important day. Thanks for staying with us.
Very good morning and welcome to WION World is One News. I'm Jaitley and thank you for tuning in to the Union Budget Special right here on WION. I'm being joined in the studio by Mr. Shailendra Bhatnagar and Suyash Bhatt as well, who joins us on the phone line from Mumbai.
And I'm Archit Chaudhary. Over the next few hours, we're going to break it all down for you, providing you what the budget means, talk about the economic survey and what this means for your wallet. But first, let's take a look at the headlines.
Question mark over the presentation of the Union Budget after sitting MP and former Indian Minister E. Ahmed passes away in New Delhi hospital after suffering cardiac arrest.
India's Finance Minister Arun Jaitley now reaches the office before presenting his third union budget. The railway budget to be presented as part of the union budget.
And former Union Minister and Indian Muslim Union League President E. Ahmed has died. He suffered a major cardiac arrest during President's address to the joint sitting of Parliament yesterday.
The MP was then immediately rushed to a hospital in New Delhi where he was put in the ICU. 78-year-old Ahmed was a Lok Sabha MP from Kerala's Malappuram. He had served as the Minister of State for External Affairs in the Congress-led UPA government and had been a Lok Sabha member for Kerala since 1991. Now, the death of a sitting member of parliament during the session puts a big question mark over the presentation of the big union budget. As per tradition, the Lok Sabha has to adjourn for the day to pay its respects for obituaries. The Speaker, Sumitra Mahajan, has to take a decision now after consulting with Parliamentary Affairs Minister Anand Kumar and the leader of the opposition. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Modi has also expressed his condolences, taking to Twitter. Let's take a look at what he says. Quote, "Saddened by the demise of Mr. E. Ahmed, a veteran political leader who served the nation with great diligence. My condolences. Mr. E. Ahmed, a devoted, significant efforts towards Kerala's progress. His role in deepening India's ties with West Asia was notable. The continuous efforts of Mr. E. Ahmed for the empowerment of the Muslim community will be remembered." End quote.
संसद के एक वरिष्ठतम सांसद की स्वर्गवास हो गया है, इसलिए ये स्पीकर के द्वारा तय किया जाएगा कि आज हाउस चलेगा या नहीं चलेगा। अभी तक परंपरा ये रही है कि अगर सिटिंग सांसद का स्वर्गवास होता है तो सदन स्थगित होता है। पूरी संभावना है एक दिन के लिए टल सकता है, पर ये विद इन फ्यू मिनट्स ये तय हो जाएगा।
Let's now go straight to our chief domestic correspondent, Karthikeya Sharma, who's standing by at Vijay Chowk. Karthikeya, quite a bit of a confusion this morning. Everybody's sort of wondering what is the procedure, what's going to happen. Some speculation of whether or not the budget could be delayed or postponed. What is the latest that you're hearing? We understand in the next 30 minutes there could be some kind of update.
Well, Archit, you see, I would to put it in the perspective. I spoke to Mukhtar Abbas Naqvi, the Minister of State for Parliamentary Affairs, and he categorically told me that the decision will be taken by the Speaker. And he also said that we also entertained the possibility that the budget might be postponed, but he said that there has to be a consensus around it. He also went on to say that the leaders of the opposition, leader of the House, Speaker and other all stakeholders will be consulted. So it's an open house, it's an open matter, Archit. It's not a full stop whether the budget will happen or budget will not happen. Sudesh, now Mukhtar Abbas Naqvi has said this. Is it to create the impression that the consensus decision will be taken after consensus, or you feel that the budget will be happening? It's just that the government is taking baby steps towards 11 a.m.
You see, nobody needs to be told actually about the sanctity of the union budget, and everybody is waiting for that. Such an unfortunate incident has happened. So naturally, you see, Speaker is the custodian of the House, so a Speaker has to take a call. So what he has to do, because the government definitely would like to present the budget if it is given a chance, but the government cannot insist on this because an incident has happened. So that is why Speaker can talk to other parties also and the government also and take a call on that.
Suleiman, now the Arun Jaitley, the finance minister, has already briefed the President of the Republic, and now he has gone to the House and there will be a meeting with the Speaker. Our sources are telling us that, Finance Ministry and Finance Minister, Sumit, I'll come back to you, they are all ready and prepped up with the budget. The government wants the budget to go through. It's just that they want to create a consensus around it. They don't want to be seen in a position that they are rushing it. What will be the position of the Congress party on this once the consultation with you takes place?
As the budget has to be presented in normal course today, the date was fixed, so all the preparation must have been done by the government. This incident has happened, the Speaker will take the call. There will be a meeting as you are telling. Let's see what the Congress party decides. At this moment, I cannot say what is the stand of the Congress party because this has unprecedentedly happened, and see what comes out from
But
the
there's
discussion.
definitely no controversy.
We'll
over
come
it.
back to, the visuals are streaming in from the parliament, Sudesh, and everything has been prepared in terms of the presentation of budget, because ultimately this is going to create a lot of precedents for future, because it's not a one-off decision, Sumit, whereby you take a decision today and bearing tomorrow. But coming down to the question of the budget, Sumit, what sort of budget are you expecting in course of the demonetization?
They have to increase spending. That's very, very sure. Will spending be increased in which area, or infrastructure or health or education, or in the hands of people directly? That is a big question which government has to address today. So they will be going through the pros and cons of giving money into hands of people directly by cutting down excise, or increasing spendings in infrastructure or health or education. That's a big question this time. FM has to address that, which way he should go. One thing is very sure, he has to increase spending, and that to keeping the fiscal deficit target of 3.5% in mind.
So Archit, that's the point my colleague had made. That spending has to be increased, and that too, a lot of I would say financial analysts are also saying. But the jury is still out as to whether the budget will be put into motion or not. Our sources are telling us the government is prepared. What they are trying to or planning to do is, despite the bite of Mukhtar Abbas Takvi, and I can say this for great surety, that they want to create a consensus. They don't want the presentation of the budget as rushed and forced by the government. What is happening is, and I'm giving you the story behind the closed rooms, is that it is an effort to create a consensus, not to decide whether it will happen or not, Archit. It is an attempt to create a consensus, because it's a very important day and it has its sanctity in India's parliamentary history.
Right, thank you so much, Karthikeya, for that input. Karthikeya, stay with us. We will come back to you and get live updates right there from the Parliament. Just to update our viewers, a copy of the budget has reached the Parliament as we speak. And of course, the biggest question today is whether or not the Parliament will be adjourned or not. We also have Jaitley, the partner at KPMG, joining us live on this telecast. Yash Bhatt, who's an economist, joining us on this telecast. And of course, in the WION headquarters in New Delhi, I've got with me Shailendra Bhatnagar, who is the editor of The Statesman, joining us. Shel, we're going to start off with you right now. We were talking earlier about the economic survey as well. What did you make of the economic survey that was presented by the CEA yesterday?
Jaitley, there were a few very important points that were raised by the economic survey. The first and the foremost being that it did accept that because of demonetization there would be a pullback in the GDP growth rate. It pegged it somewhere between 6.75% to about 7.5%. Let's presume it's 6.75%. That would be accepting that there is a slowdown that's happening in the economy, although even at 6.75%, we would be amongst the fastest growing globally. So that is one acceptance that the government has taken on itself, that after the demonetization, there has been a slowdown. That said, it has also talked about what demonetization has actually done to the country. It talks about job losses in the farm sector, it talks about slowing demand, and what the government should be doing in terms of, forcing people to accept digital payments. It says that people have a certain right to accept digital payments or go in for cash, and that right has to be accepted. If the government is prompting people to go digital, then the cost of going digital has to be borne by the government. So it raises quite basic a few points as far as the demonetization is concerned. Then it talks about oil prices. It basically says that the beautiful falling curve of oil prices over the last 3 years till 2016 has been fiscally very beneficial for the government, but that downturn is now over. Same time last year in February, oil was at $22 a barrel. Now it's at $53 a barrel.
And it is expected to go up to $70 per barrel as well going forward, perhaps.
Let's presume it does not happen, because then at that point of time, all the bets are off.
Right.
But even if it is at 53, between 53 and 60, basically what happens is that the tax buoyancy that the government was enjoying, that comes to an end. The government will have to, tweak the excise duties for the prices not to rise and inflation to remain curtailed because of higher oil prices.
The government earned a lot when the pricing of the oil really was low, right?
Yes, it did. In fact, it used those proceeds to basically recoup the bad financial health of companies like BPCL and HPCL and Indian Oil that had been, suffering on subsidies, had been putting out retail fuel prices at a subsidized cost. So one, it refinanced the oil marketing companies, it also refinanced its own budget, and it sort of put some money away for social security in the form of better subsidies on LPG, wider acceptance of kerosene as a fuel. So that wonderful journey for about 18 months to 2 years has now drawn to a close.
Right.
And beyond $53 a barrel, the pain starts to get affected.
And now, how does the government really face a hit in terms of the revenue when the oil prices are going up at this point of time?
Well, basically it will tweak the excise duty that we pay as a part of the total cost.
Right.
So if you keep the fuel price at 70 rupees a litre in Delhi as constant, and if the global prices keep on rising, then what the government will do is that instead of collecting 35 rupees as excise, it will collect only 30 and give you that 5 rupee leeway for the price to remain constant, in the hope that global prices will come down. So if your excise collections per litre of petrol are down from 35 to 30, that hits your tax collection.
Right.
Now, you mentioned the global, perspective, and that's something that we also wanted to talk about. Certainly a very a year of turmoil with what's happened with Brexit, with what's happened to Trump. Now, how is all of that going to sort of influence India and the economy with this upcoming budget?
See, there are two parts to this question. One is that a large part of the economy, the actual economy, is more or less shielded from these two events, but the stock markets are completely out in the open when these two events happen. So that is what is going to happen. We've seen Donald Trump exercising his judicious intervention on H-1B visa.
No arguments with that, no surprises either, right?
So the IT index actually fell 5% yesterday. Can you imagine?
Right.
The amount of market capitalization that was wiped out was phenomenal. So we are directly linked on both on the stock market side as well as on the human side of this whole argument. For instance, a lot of techies I am in touch with are actually planning to come back and look for jobs in India. So that is an impact as far as the IT part is concerned. Oil, it's a global play, prices rise, inflation, headline inflation will rise.
Sure.
But the beauty of rising global crude oil prices to the Indian market is phenomenal. They are directly linked. So if you see higher oil prices, you see better Sensex and better Nifty. But that's only to a certain point, beyond which the law of diminishing returns starts to act.
All right, we're going to check with you in just a minute, but I think we have an update right now.
All right, sources are telling WION World is One News that the budget may be presented today. Obituary may happen before or after. Sources are also telling WION exclusively that the government spoke to all political parties and a consensus has been reached. We're going to wait for that consensus to come out and go to our chief domestic correspondent Karthikeya Sharma in just about a bit. But we also have the partner of KPMG, Jaitley Bhattacharya, joining us live from Mumbai to discuss the union budget FY18. Good morning, Jaitley. What a pleasure to have you today here on the Union Budget Special on WION. Let's start off by talking about what your sense is of the economic survey. We asked that to Suyash, we went to Shailendra, asked him his sense. What is your sense of the overall macroeconomic picture of India? And at the back of that, what are your three takeaways from the upcoming union budget, what you would expect the finance minister to table today?
Let me start with the takeaways from the economic survey, and therefore what my view is will be the impact on the budget. Clearly there seems to be a dip in private investments. In fact, the only source of growth that came in was because of public spend, and that was also a minuscule increase in spend of about 0.1% from the previous year. So clearly there has been, if I can use the word, complete collapse of investments from a private sector perspective, and that really needs to be brought back on track. So what we would see is a slew of measures to get the private sector investments back. That would involve getting the banks to be far more efficient than what they are, making sure that the NPAs are taken out of the bank and are addressed, and therefore the suggestion of a bad bank being created wherein the significant NPAs are addressed, that will free up the banking bandwidth and their ability to be able to fund the private sector. and therefore there will be many such measures being taken up by the government. Similarly, we hope that the corporate tax will be reduced, which will then lead to more money in the hands of the corporations, which would hopefully get them to invest more in the market. Similarly, measures on interest rate coming down will help corporates invest into the market. So I see a slew of measures in ensuring that corporates and private sector start investing. There will also be measures from an investor, from a infrastructure perspective, on bringing in more tools and instruments such as the hybrid annuity model instead of pushing for PPP, of having asset recycling models coming in wherein existing de-risked assets are brought to the market for investors to come in, both domestic and foreign investors. So overall, from a private investment sentiment perspective, I would see a lot of measures coming in. The other key aspect that came out from the economic survey is that consumption has also got hit, specifically after demonetization. Now, obviously, once the remonetization happens, consumption will slowly start coming back on track. However, more needs to be done because India is a consumption-led economy. So we would see again a host of measures being taken up to increase consumption. And the consumption would not just be in terms of perhaps tax breaks, specifically in the direct tax. We would expect some tax breaks to come in so that money is brought back into the hands of the consumers. But we would also expect an increased consumption in terms of housing consumption, therefore incentives for housing for all. And the moment somebody buys, let's say, one house, they'll start buying things around it, which is the furnishings, the tables, the chairs, and so on, which will again lead to more consumption happening. And therefore, the focus on housing for all will be one of the key game changers that should be coming up as we move forward, having both an impact on the economy and the social aspect in the economy. The third key aspect that I would look forward to, and I presume will be coming up, is a further strengthening of the social safety net. The safety net has already been created in terms of Naregas, in terms of an assured 8% return on investments for senior citizens over a period of time. But also the most interesting part that we're all awaiting to see is some kind of an indication or some kind of an adoption of a universal basic income, wherein under certain criteria, people will start getting an income irrespective of what they do. And that will again be a game changer in terms of the nutrition levels going up, in terms of corruption going down, in terms of subsidy leakage going down significantly, and also in terms of being future-proof in the sense that we all believe that because of extreme automation, more jobs will get destroyed than they will get created, which has been unlike in the past where technology has actually led to more jobs getting created. Now in this scenario, as India and the rest of the world modernizes, it is important to make sure that people who do not have a job get some kind of a basic income. Otherwise, the entire economy comes to a standstill. So it will be a very futuristic step if the government comes out with some kind of a concept of a universal basic income. So
right,
these are three key
Jaitley, the government spoke about the universal basic income, and of course the CA indicated having a sort of a scheme in place, but they did hint that in the upcoming budget this could take place. But is India ready for the implementation of the universal basic income? If at all it has to happen, don't you think this would have to be done in a gradual manner where you replace a lot of subsidies as well with the new UBI scheme? And do you think any kind of an indication is expected in today's budget session on the UBI? If it happens, of course, it's the most radical and disruptive idea.
No, absolutely right. It cannot be that one has subsidies as well as universal basic income, because clearly the issue is who funds it. Do we have the ability and the fiscal headspace to fund such an initiative? The concept is, as you rightly laid out, is to rehash the subsidies and give them away as some kind of a direct benefit transfer, which is now being in a way called as universal basic income. The process has to be started somewhere. One can't really cut off subsidies on one day and start the basic income on the second day. There has to be a gradual transformation, and therefore what we expect is more of a pilot being announced rather than a full-scale universal basic income being announced, because that'll be quite complex to do. So if you're able to successfully do a significantly sized pilot in this year, then perhaps in the next year's budget we could see a larger rollout of universal basic income. And all of this conversation is on the presumption that the government will actually go for universal basic income in this budget.
All right, let's continue this conversation now. We'll get to our guest in the studio. Thank you again, Mr. Shailendra. Let's get your perspective on, there's been some speculation back and forth as we've been talking about with the news, with the budget could be postponed, there could be some delays. Why do you believe that the budget will happen today? What are your thoughts on, a pretty huge announcement that everybody's anxiously waiting to find out?
Yeah, Ajit, I would presume that the budget will be tabled in Parliament today, and while the death of a member of Parliament is sad, as a sad event, but the fact remains that the budget, the physical documents have actually landed in Parliament.
Right.
And we did see the visuals of them coming by as well. That's what we gathered from, actually.
And there is that infinitesimal risk that the budget document can be leaked. Whether it may or may not happen, but the government will go all out in its way to avoid this kind of a mishap. And therefore, I presume that the budget will be tabled. There will be a minute's silence. Parliament will be adjourned. It will be reconvened, and the budget will be tabled, simply because it's an event of national importance. The fact that the markets are ticking makes it even more difficult to keep a budget copy, safe and sound. So while it's sad that a member of Parliament has passed, but I would presume that the practical realities of having a budgetary document ready, and the fact that a lot of people who've been locked up in the North Block over so many days would perhaps be headed back home. That itself is an issue.
So more of a safety and a security concern.
Do we know whether this kind of a situation has happened some point in the past, and what has the government really done when this situation really happened in the past?
Well, I've been covering budgets since 1996. And this is the first time.
Oh, really?
First time
so we
more
just
than
have
20
to
years.
really see.
Good luck for us, right?
Good luck, and to find out what really happens. Whether it will come out today or not is the big question. But our discussion continues on what the expectation is from the union budget. Now, just to bring in all our panelists today who are lined up with us, so Yash Bhatt from Mumbai, who is an economist, Jaitley Bhattacharya, the partner at KPMG, and Shailendra Bhatnagar, who is the business editor of Statesman. We're going to talk about bank recapitalization first. Now, the banking sector is one sector that has been reeling under pressure for about a decade now, with low credit offtakes and rising non-performing assets as well. Add to the concerns is the recent cash ban, which are adding to the woes of the banking sector. Let's start off first with the banking sector, and we're going to go over to Yash Bhatt to throw some light on how he sees the banking sector pan out in the upcoming union budget. So Yash, why don't you begin with that?
Right. So if we talk about the banking sector, I think they are flushed with cash and thanks to demonetization, and I think to a great extent this demonetization has also helped answer one part of the question that the government was trying to figure out how to recapitalize them. The question still stays as to how to infuse liquidity, but as of now, for time being, they are flushed with cash. So all they have to do is figure out a way through a budget to ensure that borrowing picks up, and I see the only way that can happen is by increasing the limit for home loan exemption from 2 lakh rupees to probably 3 or 4 lakh rupees, which would also, it would be a twin pronged thing. One, it increases borrowing and would lift the economy, and also the worst hit sector, that is real estate sector, which employs largest part of skilled labor, the blue collar, what we say, which is a major population which has got affected, would also this move would be a more of a soothing effect for them. Second would be the automobile sector. 50% of employment in India is done in the auto sector, and I see some kind of move for at least hatchbacks or probably clean technology, or some way in which this sector gets a boost, and thereby spending increases by consumers at this level.
All right, so we're going to have to interrupt you for just a moment. We're going to come back to you in a minute, but let's go to Karthikeya Sharma, who's standing by Vijay Chowk to get us some updates. Lots of news and developments happening there with regards to news. We know the papers have now arrived. What is the latest that you're hearing there from your vantage point?
Was that the question for me, Archit?
Yeah, Karthikeya, that was for you. Go ahead and bring us up to speed. What's happening there at Vijay Chowk? I know the budget papers have now reached Parliament. Bring us up to speed on what's happening there.
Oh yes, we have been given to believe that the Speaker Sumitra Mahajan is going to visit the residence of E. Ahmed, and Venkaiah Naidu is also going to be there. I'm also joined by senior journalist Vinod Sharma, Suleiman Mohammed from the Congress Party is with me, and with Sumit Chaturvedi, our colleague. Mr. Sharma, this is a very peculiar situation where a person has passed away, former minister, sitting member from Malappuram, and we have been told by the sources in the government that they're going ahead with the budget. Is this the precedent, or a consensus has been forced? What should have been done? Because in next 1 hour, if everything goes by as we have been given to believe, then the budget will be presented at 11 a.m., sir.
You know, at stake is the economy of the country. I know that there is a precedent. I mean, this would be a departure from the past precedent that a sitting member of the House has died, and the House is not adjourning in mourning, you know. But I think that the other ways of expressing your condolence to associate yourself with the bereaved family, and whichever way possible, that should be done with dignity and while giving a sense of belonging to those who have lost their dear one. I think that even E. Ahmed, had he been alive, wouldn't have objected to this because we are, after all, talking about the annual budget, and the budget takes precedence over these downsides of life.
So I would like you to hold your thought for a minute. Back to you, Archit, because the general consensus here in the, I would say within the political circles and the people who have covered Parliament for long is that the budget should go on.
Karthikeya, thank you so much for that update.
Right, Karthikeya, stay with us and keep bringing us up to speed. But all that is happening, it's a good time now for us to take a short breather right here on our budget telecast. When we return, our team of panelists, and we will join you from the WION headquarters discussing every sector and what the budget expectations out of each of these sectors are. Stay with us. A consensus also follows on the other side. Stay with us on World is One News. We'll be back very shortly.